Every time you try to prove you're smart, you're advertising your insecurity. Every time you defend your choices, you're surrendering your frame. Every time you explain yourself to someone who didn't ask, you're playing a game you've already lost. Think about it. When someone questions your decisions, challenges your authority, or subtly undermines you in public, what's your immediate response? If you're like most people, you feel that surge of anxiety, that need to justify, to prove, to explain. That instinct is a cage, and every person who understands power dynamics can see it. They can smell it, and they will use it to control you without you ever realizing what's happening. In the next 20 minutes, I'll decode Machiavelli's most forbidden strategy of the invisible architecture of social games that separates those who command respect from those who desperately beg for it. This isn't philosophy. This is the operational manual for social dominance that's been hidden in plain sight for 5 centuries. In 1513, Niccolò Machiavelli was imprisoned, tortured, and exiled from Florence. His crime, knowing too much about how power actually works. During his exile, he wrote The Prince, not as a philosophical exercise, but as a desperate attempt to return to power by revealing the secret mechanics that rule is used but never spoke about. The book was immediately banned by the Catholic Church, condemned as the work of the devil, because Machiavelli committed the ultimate transgression. He exposed the game while it was still being played. Here's what most people misunderstand about Machiavelli. They think he was teaching cruelty for cruelty's sake. They think he was advocating for sociopathic manipulation. They're wrong. Machiavelli was doing something far more dangerous. He was describing reality without the comfortable lies society uses to obscure it. Modern society has buried this knowledge even deeper. You've been conditioned since childhood to believe the opposite of everything Machiavelli taught. Be nice, be authentic, be vulnerable, express yourself, explain your feelings. These aren't moral virtues, they're social control mechanisms designed to make you predictable, manageable, and weak. The masses live their entire lives, never questioning why some people command rooms while others apologize for breathing. They never wonder why certain individuals can say less and receive more. They attribute it to luck, charm, or genetics. Anything but the truth. The truth is this: social reality is a game with rules. Most people don't know the rules exist. They think social interaction is natural, spontaneous, authentic. That ignorance is precisely what makes them pieces on the board instead of players moving them. You're watching this because some part of you already senses this. You've noticed the patterns. You've seen people with less intelligence, less skill, less value somehow accumulate more power, more respect, more freedom than those who work twice as hard. You've felt the frustration of watching manipulators prosper while authentic people suffer. That frustration is your awakening. What I'm about to show you operates beneath language, beneath conscious awareness. These are the laws that govern primate hierarchy, translated into modern social systems. They worked in Machiavelli's Florence. They worked in every empire throughout history, and they work right now, in every interaction you'll have today. But there's something even darker about this, something Machiavelli himself only hinted at in The Prince. A meta layer that exists above the tactics themselves. We'll get to that in a moment. First, you need to understand the foundational principle that makes everything else possible, the law of frame impermeability. He who explains loses in every social interaction. There are 2 frames, 2 competing interpretations of reality. Your frame is your worldview, your self-perception, your internal hierarchy of what matters. Their frame is theirs. When frames collide, one of 2 things happens: dominance or submission. There is no equality. There is no compromise. One frame absorbs the other. The moment you explain yourself, you've accepted their frame as superior to yours. You've acknowledged that their judgment of you matters more than your judgment of yourself. You've handed them the weapon and pointed to your throat. Machiavelli understood this at the neurological level before neuroscience existed. Human beings are pattern recognition machines, constantly assessing social hierarchy. When you explain, you're sending a cascade of microsignals: uncertainty, approval seeking, lower status. The other person's brain registers this beneath conscious awareness and automatically adjusts their perception of your value downward. This is why powerful people speak less, not because they're mysterious for the sake of being mysterious, but because every unnecessary word is a potential leak in frame. Impermeability. Let me show you how this plays out in real scenarios. James works in corporate management. During a board meeting, a colleague challenges his proposal. "I'm not sure this approach makes sense. Can you explain your reasoning?" Most people, including the old James, would launch into detailed justification, data points, logic chains, defensive explanations about why the approach is sound. New James, who understands frame impermeability, responds differently. "The proposal stands as written. Next item." What just happened? The colleague attempted to pull James into their frame where James's competence is questionable and requires defense. By refusing to explain, James maintained his frame. The proposal is sound because he proposed it. His judgment is final. The room's power dynamics shift instantly. Some people feel uncomfortable. That discomfort is the sound of their conditioning screaming at them. They've been trained to believe that explanation equals respect, but respect and power are not the same thing. Respect is often what powerless people receive as a consolation prize. Here's the darker layer. When you refuse to explain, you force others to create explanations for themselves. And human psychology has a peculiar feature. We tend to create explanations that justify existing hierarchies. When you act like you're above explanation, people unconsciously infer that you must be. This is the difference between earned authority and assumed authority. Earned authority is always fragile, it depends on others' agreement. Assumed authority is self-reinforcing, it creates the conditions for its own validation. Watch how politicians use this. When a skilled operator is asked a hostile question, they don't answer it. They redirect to their talking point. The interviewer asks again. They redirect again. Weak politicians see this as evasion. It's not. It's frame impermeability. The politician's frame is, "I will discuss what's important." The interviewer's frame is, "You must answer what I ask." Whoever breaks first loses. Now, here's where most people fail even when they understand this principle. They confuse frame impermeability with being an asshole. They confuse refusing to explain with refusing to communicate. These are not the same. Frame impermeability doesn't mean you never provide information. It means you never provide information from a defensive posture. You speak from a position of choosing to enlighten, not needing to justify it. The test is simple. Are you explaining because they demanded it, or because you decided they're worth the information? The first is submission. The second is generosity. From abundance, Machiavelli wrote in The Prince, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." The moment you explain yourself, you're teaching people what you really are, someone who needs their approval. Now, most people stop here. They practice not explaining and wonder why it's not working. That's why they fail. There's a second layer to social games that operates simultaneously and without it. Frame impermeability makes you invisible instead of powerful. The law of strategic silence. Absence as amplification. Machiavelli observed that power concentrates not through constant demonstration, but through calculated withdrawal. In The Prince, he notes that a ruler who is always visible becomes common. Commonness is the death of authority. Here's the psychological mechanism most people never grasp. Human attention follows scarcity. Value is perceived through absence, not presence. The person who is always available, always responding, always present, has transformed themselves from a person into a resource, and resources get used, not respected. Our strategic silence operates on multiple frequencies simultaneously. First, it creates information asymmetry. When you're silent, others fill that silence with projection. They project power onto you, they project depth, they project intention. Your actual power matters less than the power they imagine you have. Second, silence triggers a neurological response in others called social prediction error, and the human brain is constantly predicting social behavior based on patterns. When you break the pattern of immediate response, immediate availability, immediate reaction, you create uncertainty. Uncertainty about your motives, uncertainty about your assessment of them, and in that uncertainty, anxiety grows. People become more concerned with your opinion of them than you are with their opinion of you. The power dynamic inverts. Let me give you a concrete example of how this operates in modern social systems. Marcus runs a consulting business. For years he answered client messages within minutes. He was proud of his responsiveness. He thought it demonstrated professionalism and care. What it actually demonstrated was availability, which the primate brain interprets as lower status. His clients pushed deadlines, negotiated prices downward, treated his expertise as a commodity. Why? Because commodities are always available. Scarce resources are not. Marcus implemented strategic silence, not rudeness strategy. He created response windows. Client messages received responses within 24 hours, not 24 minutes. Not because he was busy, but because his attention became deliberately scarce. Within 3 months, client behavior transformed. Fewer petty requests, less price negotiation, more respect for his time. Why? The silence communicated what words never could. His attention has value. His time is not a resource to be extracted. He is scarce, but here's where it gets darker. And this is what Machiavelli understood but rarely wrote explicitly. Strategic silence isn't just about creating space. It's about making others invest emotional energy during that space. When you go silent after a conversation, the other person's mind doesn't go silent. It continues the conversation without you. It rehearses arguments, it wonders about your response, it creates scenarios. Every moment of that mental activity is an investment in you. And the psychological principle of sunk cost means the more they invest, the more valuable you become to them. This is why the person who cares less controls the relationship, not because of some moral superiority, but because they're not investing mental energy during the silence. The power differential is actually an energy differential. Social media has weaponized this principle. The dopamine cycle of post and response has trained an entire generation to need immediate feedback. The person who can resist that need has an asymmetric advantage. While others are checking for responses, refreshing feeds, anxious about likes, the strategically silent person is building while others are waiting. If you're still watching this, you're already ahead of 90% who clicked away because this makes them uncomfortable. They wanted tactics to make people like them. You're here to understand how power actually moves through social systems. But there's a critical distinction. Strategic silence is not the same as withdrawal or avoidance. Weak people use silence as a shield to hide behind. Powerful people use silence as a hammer to create impact. The test is intention. Are you silent because you're afraid to engage, or because your engagement is too valuable to be given freely? The first is cowardice, disguised as strategy. The second is power. The next principle is where it gets truly dangerous, because it requires you to betray a core assumption you've held your entire life about how to gain influence. The law of controlled revelation. Vulnerability is manipulation. Modern culture has sold you a lie so pervasive, so deeply embedded in every self-help book and therapy session, that questioning it feels like heresy. The belief that vulnerability creates connection, and connection creates influence. It does, but not the way you think. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." He was describing a deeper truth about human nature. We trust patterns, and the person who controls which patterns they reveal controls trust itself. Vulnerability is not the absence of control in the hands of someone who understands power dynamics. Vulnerability is a precision instrument for creating perceived intimacy while maintaining actual distance. Here's the mechanism. When you reveal something personal, the other person experiences a neurochemical response. Oxytocin release, the bonding hormone. Their brain interprets your vulnerability as a signal of trust, and the human instinct to reciprocate trust is nearly involuntary. They open in return. They reveal, they expose. But here's what they don't realize: you chose what to reveal. You selected the vulnerability that creates the exact emotional response you want while protecting everything that actually matters. This is the difference between authentic vulnerability and strategic vulnerability. Authentic vulnerability is emotional incontinence, spraying your wounds on anyone who will listen. Strategic vulnerability is calculated disclosure designed to achieve a specific outcome. Weak people share their trauma to seek validation. Powerful people share selected struggles to build influence. Let me show you how this operates in a way that will probably make you uncomfortable. Sarah wants to build trust with a new team she's managing. The authentic vulnerability approach would be share her insecurities about leadership, her fears of failure, her imposter syndrome. This creates connection, yes. It also destroys authority. The strategic vulnerability approach is different. Sarah shares a story about a past failure, specific, concrete, resolve, not current weakness, but past struggle that she overcame. The story accomplishes 3 things simultaneously. 1, it triggers the trust response. She's being real. 2, it demonstrates resilience. She failed and recovered, which actually increases perceived competence. 3, It creates a frame where she's the mentor sharing wisdom, not the peer seeking support. Same mechanism, vulnerability, opposite outcome. The difference is control. Machiavelli understood that humans are story-making machines. We don't experience reality directly. We experience the stories we tell about reality. The person who controls which stories get told controls perceived reality. Is why powerful people let others discover their achievements through third parties rather than bragging directly. It's why they reveal struggles only after they've been resolved. It's why they share personal information that creates specific impressions while protecting the increasing information that would create vulnerability. Now some will say this is manipulation, that this is inauthentic, that this is wrong. But power doesn't care about labels, and here's the truth that will separate you from most people watching this. Every single interaction involves impression management. Every conversation is performance. The only question is whether you're performing consciously or unconsciously. Unconscious performance is called being yourself. Conscious performance is called being strategic. The person who thinks they're just being themselves is simply performing a role they've internalized so deeply they forgot it's a role. The elite understand this. Politicians, CEOs, power players, across every domain they reveal what serves them and protect what doesn't. They share struggles that make them relatable while hiding weaknesses that make them vulnerable. You've been taught that calculation equals anything. That's a belief system designed to keep you predictable. The moment you calculate your presentation, you've stepped outside the script society wrote for you. That's what makes the elite uncomfortable, not that you're being fake, but that you're refusing to be an unconscious player in their game. But knowing how to control revelation isn't enough. You need to understand where to apply that control. And that's where the final principle, the one Machiavelli buried deep in the principle, essential. The law of ambiguity, dominance, the power of unresolved tension. This is the forbidden knowledge. The principle that makes everything else multiply in effectiveness. And the reason most people can never implement it is because it requires tolerating something that modern psychology teaches you to eliminate. Discomfort. Machiavelli observed that the most powerful rulers maintain deliberate ambiguity about their intentions, their loyalties, and their assessments. Not dishonesty, statistic, opacity. Here's what he understood about human neurology 5 centuries before fMRI machines. The human brain cannot tolerate unresolved tension. It's called the zygonic effect. Incomplete patterns create cognitive loops that demand closure. The person who creates those loops without resolving them occupies mental real estate in other people's minds without paying rent. Every time you clearly define yourself, you give others the relief of categorization. They know who you are, they know how to interact with you, they know what to expect. That knowledge is their power over you. Ambiguity keeps you three-dimensional in a world where everyone else is flat. Think about the people who command the most fascination in your life, not the most liked or the most compelling. They maintain ambiguity. You're never quite sure what they think of you, never quite certain what they'll do next, never completely able to predict their response. That uncertainty is magnetic, because the human brain prioritizes solving puzzles over consuming solutions. This manifests in specific tactical applications. When someone asks your opinion, the weak response is a clear position. The powerful response maintains productive ambiguity. There are dimensions to this most people aren't considering. You've said something, you've said nothing, and their brain will work overtime trying to figure out which dimensions you mean. When someone challenges you publicly, the weak response is defense or counter. The powerful response is an ambiguous smile. Are you amused? Are you dangerous? Are you unbothered? They'll never quite know. And that uncertainty is a weight they'll carry. Here's what Machiavelli never explicitly wrote, but understood. Ambiguity. Dominance is the meta-strategy that makes all other strategies unpredictable. If people always know you won't explain yourself, you become predictable in your frame. If they know you'll always use strategic silence, your silence loses its edge. But if they never quite know which tool you'll use, when you'll engage or withdraw, when you'll reveal or conceal, you'll become unfixable in their mental model of you. And the person who cannot be fixed in a category cannot be controlled by category-based strategies. This is why the most powerful political and business leaders maintain ambiguity about their next moves. It's not secrecy for secrecy's sake. It's forcing every other player to prepare for multiple scenarios. While they expend energy hedging against your possible moves, you're simply observing and choosing. The dark truth here is that ambiguity, dominance, requires comfort with being misunderstood. Most people cannot tolerate misunderstanding. They need others to get them. That need is a leash. The elite cut that leash. They let people misunderstand. They let people create incorrect narratives. They observe which narratives people create and use that information to understand what those people fear or desire. Your reputation is not the story you tell about yourself. It's the story others tell about you. And here's what Machiavelli knew. You control that story not by correcting every misunderstanding, but by feeding productive ambiguity that makes your legend grow in the direction you want. Now, you have the 4 laws, but knowing them isn't enough. You need to understand how they integrate into a single system of social dominance. These 4 principles aren't separate tactics. They're a unified operating system for social power. Frame. Impermeability creates the foundation you establish that your reality is not subject to external validation. Strategic silence amplifies that foundation by making your attention scarce and valuable. Controlled revelation builds calculated trust that serves your interests. And ambiguity dominance makes you unpredictable, ensuring no one can develop effective counter-strategies together. They create what Machiavelli called virtue, not virtue in the moral sense, but the force of will that bends social reality to your objectives. Here's how they integrate in real interaction. You enter a social environment, a meeting, a party, a negotiation. You speak less than others, expect strategic silence. When you speak, you don't explain or justify your position's frame impermeability. You share one carefully selected personal detail that creates the impression you want others to have. Controlled revelation. And you maintain slight ambiguity about your intentions and assessments. Ambiguity, dominance. The compound effect is that you become the gravitational center of the room without appearing to try. Others orient toward you because you've created multiple psychological needs simultaneously. The need to understand your silence. The need to gain your approval since you don't seek theirs. The need to reciprocate your vulnerability, and the need to resolve the ambiguity you've created. Now, some will say this is manipulation. They'll call it dark, they'll say it violates authenticity. But power doesn't care about labels. And here's the question those critics never answer. Is it less manipulative to unconsciously seek approval or to consciously design your presence? Is the person blindly following their conditioning more authentic than the person deliberately choosing their path? The world is already playing this game. Every corporation, every media organization, every political entity uses these exact principles. They maintain frame impermeability through PR departments. They use strategic silence about their internal operations. They deploy controlled revelation through humanizing stories. They maintain ambiguity about their future moves. The only question is whether you're a conscious player or an unconscious piece. Reality check. The world is divided into those who understand the game and those who get played by it. Social dynamics are not fair. They're not designed to reward niceness or authenticity. They're designed by evolutionary psychology and reinforced by every power, structure and society to reward those who understand the rules. Machiavelli didn't create these rules. He didn't even advocate for them morally. He simply had the courage to describe reality without the comfortable lies society wraps around it. You now have that same choice, comfort or power. You cannot have both. Here's how you implement this system. Starting today, Level 1, immediate implementation. Stop explaining. You sell to people who didn't ask for explanation. This starts today. The next time someone questions your choice, resist the urge to justify. Respond with "that's my decision," or simply redirect the conversation. Your conditioning will scream at you. That screaming is the sound of your social programming losing control. Let it. Level 2, 7-day practice. Create response windows. If someone texts you, wait a minimum of 2 hours before responding, even if you saw it immediately. Not to be rude, to recalibrate their expectation of your availability. Watch how their behavior changes. Watch how they invest more thought in their messages to you when they can't expect instant response. Level 3, 30-day. One vulnerability you currently share freely, usually an insecurity or struggle. Stop sharing it. Instead, craft one past struggle that you resolve, and practice sharing that story instead. Notice how it creates connection without creating weakness. Notice how people's perception of your competence actually increases. Level 4, 90-day mastery. Practice maintaining ambiguity in your assessments. When people ask your opinion, particularly in group settings, start responding with questions that redirect focus. What do you think the second order effects would be? Or that's one interpretation, what are the others? You're participating without positioning. You're engaging without exposing. And you're watching how others expose themselves while trying to get you to expose yourself. Level 5. Advanced integration. Begin observing social dynamics as if you're watching a chess game. Who seeks approval? From whom? Who explains themselves? Who commands silence when they speak? Who creates ambiguity? Start predicting outcomes of interactions based on these dynamics. Watch yourself become right more often as seems possible. You now know what 99% of people will never understand. Social reality is constructed, and the person who understands the construction controls the experience. Most people watching this will find this information interesting. Some will find it uncomfortable. A very few will recognize it as the manual they've been searching for. The question is which group you're in. Most people will watch this video and do nothing. They'll nod along, maybe take a screenshot of a quote, and return to their pattern of seeking approval, explaining themselves, and wondering why others accumulate power while they stay stuck. That's why they stay powerless. Knowledge without implementation is just entertainment. If you're different, if this resonates with a part of you that's exhausted from performing for an audience that will never be satisfied. If you're tired of watching manipulators win, well, you try to be good, then you know what to do. Subscribe. If you want to understand the mechanics of power that society deliberately obscures, this channel exists for the people who've realized that the social game has rules. And ignorance of those rules isn't innocence, it's voluntary weakness. There are more principles, darker mechanisms, strategies that go beyond what Machiavelli could write in The Prince without ensuring his death. The next video decodes the principle of strategic cruelty, why sometimes the most powerful move is to be deliberately unkind, and how to know when to deploy it. But that knowledge is for people who've proven they can handle these foundations first. The choice is yours. But remember, ignorance is not bliss. It's slavery. And every day you spend not understanding these dynamics is a day someone else is using them on you. The game is being played whether you acknowledge it or not. The only question is whether you're playing or being played.